Oh, it's humming. Is it humming? Let's see. Let's share the show out. We should be live now, but let's share out on YouTube. Let's share out on YouTube this so we can have some of my friends join and hopefully roast me because I had a pretty shitty, I had a pretty crappy uh,
Fantasy football
fantasy.
week.
Yeah, it was really bad. I couldn't even say the words. It was so bad.
I was going to say it has to be fantasy football
Yeah.
because as someone that quit fantasy football for that reason, when your team wins, there's nothing but positivity all week.
Oh yeah, smiles and smiles and
That's right.
everything. There he is, right there. That's the King Smiley when he's doing well. But it was horrific. I mean, Jamar Chase is not playing to my requirements. If not for T.J. Hawkinson, if not for um, believe it or not, George Pickens on my bench, 25 points. 25 points while Jamar Chase languishes in first in my starting spot. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Well,
But
that could be an ongoing problem. We'll see, I guess.
I have an ulcer because of it. Jamar is killing me. Joe Burrow owners must be throwing hissy fits right now. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Well, Aaron Rodgers and Nick Chubb owners probably first in line at the Hissy Fit convention.
The hissy fit
That part
convention.
is true.
I would love to. Speaking of which, I'd love to visit a hissy fit convention. That's got to be incredible.
You can only imagine what the waiting line there would be like.
Right? Everybody's like
Super calm.
So everybody's just really subdued.
Just happy to be here.
Yeah, just happy to be. I'm not taking this badly at all. Let's see. So let's go into our NFL HQ channel. Ooh. Ooh, that's us from last week. I was bringing up our NFL HQ channel on YouTube. But while I do that, everyone, welcome. Let's open up the chat. Let's see who's here watching. We have a watcher. You creep. You are a creep. How dare you be the watcher? There we go. Hey, kids. Let's open that chat overlay up. What's going on? Mary Jo Bloom, welcome. Big football fan,
Well,
man?
hello.
Hello,
Mary
Mary.
Jo Mary Jo is in one of our fantasy football leagues.
Oh,
One
fantastic.
of me and Sam's. And so she stopped in to say hi. She normally joins in the show for our show, How Was Your Day, on Wednesday nights. And tonight, Mary Jo, this is NFL HQ. This is my friend AC and my friend Dan Rod. I hope I'm pointing the right way. AC,
Very nice to
Dan
meet
Rod.
you.
And we are talking NFL football, and we're talking all things football. If you want to leave a comment about how well your team did,
Or not.
didn't, and we also throw in some fantasy football also. So, welcome.
We entertain it all. We really do. So yeah, I mean, how was your? Before we get started, because I know we went pretty long last week. We had to touch upon a lot of stuff, and unfortunately, Brandon's not with us this week, but he will be back next week. Just wondering how your weekend went. I heard you had internet issues.
Oh yes, me. You might notice I'm not wearing my headphones. I'm just here on my phone, so I hope the sound's coming through okay. Yeah, our internet went out Sunday, and so I didn't get to see all the games. I did get to see the Jaguars lose, so that was important. But after that, Sam says I broke the internet. I didn't. And I don't know, you can take that one or two ways. I broke the internet, or I actually literally broke the internet. But yeah, so we're back to old time. We actually just started a fire last night and just sat around reading books. No, we didn't. But yeah, we're not.
That's very unlike you. Very unlike you.
I just want to clarify. You lost the internet. You didn't lose electricity. Don't you have like a DVD player? Can't you watch a movie?
Yeah, here's the deal. Everything goes through internet now. So where I used to have VCRs way back in the day and Blu-ray players all hooked up and ready to go, or even something just to get local channels, I don't have any of that hooked up. I haven't had to use it in years, and so it was not hooked up. I had to dig for a controller just to be able to hook up our PlayStation 4. We don't have a PlayStation 5, just so I could turn it on to watch a Blu-ray. So, and there's Sam I am saying I did break the internet. Nope.
Yeah, literally.
Technically I did.
You stepped on it.
Technically I did.
Just remind me, Dave, are you in rural Nebraska? Where are you?
No, I'm in Omaha, which is the one of the only. Well, there's two cities in Nebraska. It's one of the two cities. It's not the capital. It's the other one. We're actually a decent sized city. I'm not in rural Nebraska. I don't have cows, even though I get told that a lot. But you can go out your backyard and find a bunch of cows. Nope. I am in Omaha and not in rural Nebraska.
No,
What do you
How
ask?
much has Omaha gone up in popularity ever since Peyton Manning started using it on
Omaha.
Sundays?
Right. You know what? People at least look up where it is since that point in time. Yeah, Omaha. He used that for years and years. We became very popular after that. People would ask Peyton Manning, "What does that mean?" And I think I don't know. You could probably tell his famous line of what it means. It doesn't have anything to do with the city. I think it means we're not going to do that pass play or that run play. We're going to check down to this, but it might mean this. And on Thursdays, it means this, and that's something completely different. That's what Omaha means.
So pretty much, you have no idea what Omaha means.
Absolutely no idea.
No one does.
But neither do you.
Not even Eli. Not even Eli knows.
Definitely not him. Anyway,
Omaha.
Dan Ron, how are you, sir? How was your weekend?
For me, another great weekend being a Dallas Cowboys fan. Obviously, not the test we were looking for in the New York Jets because of the fact that Aaron Rodgers went down, as we made note of in week 1. So we got Zach Wilson coming to town. It was an interesting affair because we heard how great this Jets defense could be. Was there going to be a new Zach Wilson? At the end of the day, we kind of saw how the game unfolded. A much better offensive game for the Dallas Cowboys. So I walk away confident. We got the Frank Sinatra, as we're calling it, the New York. Double victory over 2 New York teams. And we don't really get to see what the Dallas Cowboys are made of because we're going into Arizona, a road game, to take on the Cardinals this week. We'll talk about that a little later. But, of course, as is with the Dallas Cowboys, as I'm sure you two are aware of, and a lot of people in America, me being from Canada, a little bit different here, but the Dallas Cowboys are the lead story everywhere all the time for whatever reason, good or bad. They're a very polarizing team. So now they're getting a lot of this hype again. Could this finally be the year where the Cowboys break through? Stop me if you've heard this story a million times. And now I'm just sitting here as a Cowboys fan trying to temper my expectations, but I'm really on the cusp of letting them just run wild and truly dream how great this season could be. Now, sobering thought, of course, watching Monday Night Football for the second week in a row, we see a devastating injury to a key player on a key team. Obviously, with Nick Chubb, I don't know if we have the official report yet, but if you've seen the video, and obviously on the telecast, they did not show you the replay, but you heard the fans' reaction because they did show it on the Jumbotron there in Pittsburgh. I don't think Nick Chubb's playing football the rest of this season. I think it's safe to say that. I'm pretty sure he's been ruled out for the rest of the season. Interestingly enough, Aaron Rodgers is trying some newfangled treatment, apparently. I don't think only Aaron Rodgers can, and he has aspirations of making it back for the playoffs this year. I think we'll put that on the back burner for now. But going back to the Cowboys, great weekend, great result. Happy the team won, was happy with the result. We can dive into that a little bit more a little later. But for right now, just waiting to see the Cowboys have a true test and see what happens when that does come.
Let's stay on Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb, it's one of those injuries. It happens every so often, which is a horrible thing. When, like you said, Dan, when the announcers don't even want to say what happened, or if they don't want to show the replay, it's horrific. Some people said grotesque. I heard career ending in some moments because it was the same knee that got hurt in 2015, if I'm not mistaken. So he had a PCL, MCL, and ACL in 2015. This is off the top of my head, I believe. And then also last night, I think it just did the job. You know how roosters have legs that go back and kind of like an acute 45-degree angle? That was what I heard that happened to Nick Chubb. So if it was the other leg, I'd probably be a little bit more optimistic about him coming back. But the mere fact that he came back from a horrific Willis McGahee type injury and then became one of the best running backs in football, is a story in and of itself. But this is catastrophic, and I don't want to put anyone on a sentence or anything, or but I'm sorry, it just doesn't look like he can come back from something so horrific on the same knee.
Well, they didn't show it again, Dan. I didn't mean to interrupt, but I did. They didn't show it again. So I had to, of course, and I didn't have internet anyway, but I had to look it up. And it is. I had a Stretch Armstrong doll, if you know what those are, back in the
Oh
day.
my God.
And this guy's leg went that way. It was horrific. I'm glad I looked it up, and I'm not glad I looked it up at the same time. It was terrible. And I would guess, and Dan, I will take your opinion too, but I would guess career ending. I don't know how he even was able to get off the field, and I didn't see that part. But
Well, the cart came
obviously it was
immediately.
carted. But as far as when that picture you showed of him sitting there, where it kind of looked normal, he's sitting there, and there's nothing completely out of whack. I mean, to me, it was worse than Joe Theismann back in the day. It was bad.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And I thought it was a compound fracture at first glance, just because of how they talked about it. But they just won't show the replay, and you know how horrific that is. So thanks a lot. Theathletic.com. Never asked me for money before, but it was horrific. And I mean, like, again, for them not to be able to we've seen it all, right? I saw Alex Smith
Right.
like 4 times, but a lot of people on Twitter or X now really kind of giving their condolences on the knee. Everyone from
It's
LeBron.
all
So,
that happens. Danrod, is he done?
The hard part is, obviously, in 2023, I think surgeries, you always hear they're successful, but I think medicine has improved a lot. Since way back when, I think it was Joe Theismann had his leg broken by Lawrence Taylor, and that ended his career. I think it's the mental grind of trying to come back from these surgeries every time and rehabbing. That's what a lot of these athletes always talk about. It's just the solidarity, not the solidarity, but the solitude of trying to rehab, because you're away from the team. It's basically on your own. You're trying to come back. You're trying to be, the best version of yourself. No matter what you do, your body is different. Especially in his case, it's happened twice now. Can it happen again? So I think it's really up to Nick Chubb whether he wants to come back. I think if he wants to, he's only 27 years old. He'll turn 28 just after Christmas this year, the 27th of December. So in running back years, I don't think that makes him too old. He's not that young either. But I really think, condolences to Nick Chubb, and I really hope he has a speedy recovery, and he does come back. But what this really leads back to is it really opens up the discussion again that was really happening in the preseason and before the season of the devaluation of running backs.
Exactly where I was going.
Nick Chubb is not the only running back to get hurt this weekend. He's the only one that made the headlines in terms of not going to be playing the rest of the season. But there's another running back that was very popular, Saquon Barkley. He's out at least 3 weeks. He hurt an ankle. And
much better prognostication, excuse me, but much better prognostication. I thought it was one of those as well, where I was like, well, how many times can we watch Saquon go down? How many times are they going to reinvest in this person? Yeah, as special as he is, but at least it wasn't more than 3 weeks, so that was much better than anybody thought. People were like, it's old Saquon again. He's hitting the dirt. So,
and then to make matters worse for Nick Chubb, obviously you have Jerome Ford come in. And he runs 16 times for 106 yards.
That's fast.
So, the talk with running backs is you don't want to pay them big money because they can get hurt. Things like this can happen. They take a lot of wear and tear. And then you can find running backs everywhere that can almost do what most of them can do. And then the argument always comes up, well, there are these certain backs that are much more special. They're much more valuable than your everyday run-of-the-mill back. But then we get shown these examples time and time again. And it's hard to say if running backs are devalued or they are valued as expected. How can you guarantee? Now, Nick Chubb was one of these guys. He got more money than some. He has a guaranteed contract, so that's good for him. But how can you pay these guys knowing that they are more likely to get hurt than most of the players on the field? Because when they get the ball, almost every time, 11 guys on the opposite side of the ball are trying to hit them.
Right.
Quarterbacks, you can say the same thing, but quarterbacks have 5 to 7 guys protecting them at all times, trying to prevent that. And receivers, usually catching passes, don't have 11 guys aiming for them on any given catch. So,
they've got the one or two that are double covering them.
Let's see. So a couple of friends of mine here in Vegas in my fantasy football league, George Gutierrez, what's up? He was here last week. He goes, "What it do, boys?" And then he said that he saw the play. It's one of the worst leg injuries he's ever seen, and his leg turned into an L.
Mhm.
Good lord.
And then
Uh,
again, not making light of the injury, but Josh Jacobs runs for -2 yards. So another running back that wants to get paid. His output production was horrible against Buffalo this weekend.
exactly. When they game plan for that, and we'll get into the Dolphins game a little bit next week, a little bit later in this show. Last week's Dolphins game was very, very different than what we're used to. It wasn't the air it out. It was more the ground and pound. Let's control the clock. Let's control the ball. So it depends. My point is that if they game plan for that, it's over, right? They're almost daring you to throw it. If you have somebody on the wide receiver injury list, now we're really daring you to throw it. If we have Minka Fitzpatrick back there, like who the player was that turned Chubb into a rooster leg. I don't think he did it on purpose. He's not historically a dirty player, but he hits hard as hell. So one of my favorite safeties coming out because we drafted him in Miami didn't work out for whatever reason, but I'm still a huge fan and not a dirty player, but he went really low. Sometimes you don't have to go that low. Um, so yeah, the injury report was pretty bleak after, especially Monday night. We've lost so many people already in the course of like the last preseason game and the first two games that
Mhm.
the NFL is going to have to start doing something to either protect the tackle part of the game where you're in the trenches where kind of it's hard to see because that's really where it happened. And there's going to be new sanctions on low blocks. There has to be. There
Well,
has
see, that's the hard part, right? So when you were talking about was it a low hit by Minka Fitzpatrick, well, all these guys have been told now is they cannot target with the crown of their helmet, and they cannot
Right.
aim at anybody's head. They cannot forcibly contact the head or neck area because that's a targeting call, and you could be thrown out of the game. So I understand the NFL is trying to protect everybody with safety, and concussions and everything are very prevalent. But now you're forcing these guys to take a lower target, and you can watch NFL football. A lot of these guys are bad tacklers,
Mm-hmm.
and you're seeing a lot more big plays because guys are basically, I think I've heard the term before, whether it was a coach that I had or a carpet bagging, which basically they're
Mm-hmm.
just diving at the ground. You see a lot more guys hurdling. I don't think we've seen as many high hurdle highlights as we've seen in the last 5, 6 years because
Right.
they know tacklers are going low. And the other thing they're not doing is wrapping up with their arms. They're basically launching themselves, but they're doing it shoulder first because they can't use their head for their
Right.
safety and the safety of others, and they're going at legs.
And now there's targeting,
And
right? So we saw a targeting call as
yeah,
well. So there's targeting. There's uh, the way that they teach you now, and the kids. If you were to start learning football now, you're going to start by going in with your shoulder lower, like you said, wrapping and then turning in the trenches and between the A and B
mhm,
gap, the C D gap. Like there's no way you can turn. That's an end
yeah.
thing, not a defensive tackle or linebacker thing. So if in the open field, sure, I can roll away from you as like a crocodile, but it's not going to happen in the trenches. And what are you going to do? Are you going to hit him with the crown of your head? Are you going to hit him in the numbers? Do I hit him in the waist? So that's a good point. What do I
Well,
do?
and also in the trenches, a lot of times it's not even the guy that's tackling that hurts you. Look at a lot of these linemen; they're getting rolled up on by other linemen falling behind them, beside them. Even runners like Saquon Barkley. I'm not sure his mechanism of injury. I know that he hurt his ankle, but it could be somebody falling on him after he's being tackled by somebody else. That happens all the time because there's just so many massive bodies in one small space, all fighting for the same goal, one way or the other.
Yep.
And so you cannot regulate inside, the line of scrimmage area there, the in front of the lineman, whatever the box cut, basically, how tackling happens in there. In the open field, it's a little easier, I guess, to determine
Yeah,
how to
you can
tackle
identify.
somebody or whatever. But it's you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
Actually, I would say like now in today's NFL, the bottom of the pile is the only place that guy can get a little privacy. Yoink hit somebody poke somebody in the eye, gouge. That's real football back in the day. Barkley was injured on the Giants' game-winning drive against the Cardinals as he appeared to get his ankle rolled up. Turns out Barkley has avoided major injury, which is great news, and has just an ordinary sprain, but he's expected to miss up to 3 weeks and no more. So, but look at this injury list, guys. Just off
Yeah.
the top. Deontay Johnson, Buda Baker, Jalen Waddle, Amari Cooper, Saquon Barkley, Joe Burrow, Anthony Richardson, which if he what did I tell you week 1? If he keeps RG3ing it, he's going to be RG3. He's going
Right.
to be hosting College Game Day
Well,
because
and that's 2 weeks in a row. I
yeah.
mean, you're right. RG3, I mean, running straight. Don't get me wrong. The guy's a tough guy. He's a big guy. He's tough. But you're right. If he keeps running in like he's a huge running back, he's a huge quarterback, but he keeps running in like he wants to take on that defensive player like he's done multiple times, he's going to get hurt every game.
But you're not Cam Newton. You're not Cam Newton. There's only a couple of those people.
Well, I mean, that's got to be 2 concussions in 2 games. I don't know if they are, if they were, and I don't know what's reported correctly. Yes, it was a concussion. He sit out or whatever, but those are 2 hard hits in 2 weeks, and you're not going to last long like that as a quarterback in this league if that's the way you're going to play it.
And the man that gives the ball to Anthony Richardson also is in concussion protocol against the Texans. Veteran center Ryan Kelly also got dinged in the head. Then you got Odell Beckham, Micah Hyde, Darnell Mooney. You're looking at Tariq Woolen, Logan Thomas, which is a huge part of that offense. So, I mean, these are huge names. They're not just anybody. They're not practice guys. These are people you want on game day. And it's already week 2, and I see teams disintegrating.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times when we talk about teams that make the playoffs, the number one thing that we factor in is health. And you look at last year, the 49ers were a very healthy team by all accounts going into that NFC Championship game, and no one could have predicted that Brock Purdy, 1 series in, something goes wrong with his elbow, and he can no longer throw a pass. And then from there, it was kind of, an unfair fight. Their backup quarterback gets hurt, and then they basically have no quarterback on the roster. And that was a tough watch, that second half of that NFC Championship game. But they always say the best ability in almost any sport is availability.
Say it with us.
And
availability.
Yeah.
Right.
Michael says, case in point, Barry Sanders is the best running back to play the game and retired early.
Truth.
Calvin Johnson, same thing. My only question is now, Eagles fans, Buccaneers fans, Rams fans, or Bengals fans, it seems like Monday night we keep getting these injuries, so knock on wood, but who are we going to lose in one of those 2 games? Because, again, 2 Monday night games coming up this week. But,
terrified.
Right.
Terrified of seeing another shit game. I'm terrified of watching another horrific injury or I mean, I've just seen way too many people getting carted off. I've seen way too many people just try to play the game as if they understand how fast it's going, and it looks like they've been off for 9 months. So it really is kind of sloppy. I mean, did you see last night's game? The sloppiest game I've ever seen.
It's definitely there. So, AC, I just want to give you your kudos. I think you're a week late, but the Steelers as a home dog did pull off the victory yesterday, beating the Browns 26-22. So I think you're just 1 week too early on your prediction there.
I know it.
But, of course, I got to boast about my Cowboys, but let's not bury the headline. Another team that is 2-0 are your Miami Dolphins.
Thank you so much. Oh, my gosh. You know what? That brings us to our segment called Home Field Advantage. So home field advantage, we're going to talk about our teams. So we're going to talk about the Cowboys, in this case, the Miami Dolphins and the Jaguars. We'll break down that game. And Brandon isn't here. He doesn't get his Vikings, which is probably a good thing.
I'm an AFC Richmond fan, actually. That's what I'm going to talk about, but go ahead.
That's the wrong football altogether. That's the wrong football altogether.
You're right. All right. Ted Lasso's awesome, though. I'll go back to it. Go ahead.
So, yeah, let's bring up so the Miami Dolphins played probably one of the I was really nervous about this game. And people were like, well, you just beat the Chargers. It shouldn't be a big deal. The New England Patriots came back against the Philadelphia Eagles last week and almost came back to take that game. I was actually petrified of what was going to happen. Some people were saying, especially, I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a sports writer, and he said Mac Jones and Tua are basically the same person. Do you agree with that?
I don't think that's the most fair assessment.
No.
Besides the obvious fact that one's left-handed, one's right-handed. But I think it's maybe similar because they were both in the same quarterback room coming out of Alabama. But I really think Tua, for what it's worth, a little bit more further along in his development than Mac Jones has looked. Now that could be the team, the O-line and everything around him, but I think it's the comparisons will always be there, and we'll just have to wait and see. I don't think they're similar necessarily.
Well, because
as of right now,
their completion percentage was about in the high 60s. Obviously coming out of the same kind of system. The obvious thing is that he's left-handed against right-handed, but to me, the difference is reading the defense. So, to me, either Tua is probably the best system quarterback I've ever seen, or he can actually read a defense, get out of trouble, be able to pass in those little pockets. I think he has supreme confidence in his whatever arm people think he has supreme confidence in it. So that's not something that I'm too worried about. His mental cerebral capacity is what puts him over to me. I thought that was a little disrespectful. I've never seen Mac Jones do that. But yeah, it wasn't the most beautiful game. Like I said, Kareem Mostert took over for most of it, just because they wanted to bring the ground and pound to them instead of Belichick doing it to us and controlling the game. I think they decided to say, you know what, let's start our big back. They didn't even change the pace him too much. They put him in and they pounded it when they needed it. He came through. Jalen Waddle got a little concussed. They hit him pretty hard. Tyreek Hill, a quiet game, but usually Belichick puts him on an island and has a game plan for him. It's just how well we game plan for the game plan. We know Belichick's going to come after us and our number one. How well are we going to respond? And I think we did pretty good. It just wasn't a pretty game. Nothing to write home about as far as that. But we are 5-0 against the New England Patriots. And just the Patriots had blocking issues. Mac Jones didn't have time to throw. While New England backs failed to have much running room, he still couldn't do anything with the ball when he had it. And I saw him uncomfortable, which makes me very happy. And we are alone, 2-0 on top of the AFC East for the first time in a while. While the Buffalo Bills languish at 1-1, 0-2 for the New England Patriots. So that's always a good day for me. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't know if Dave got to see the game because obviously we know about his internet issues. I think first and foremost, a Sunday night game, so a good spotlight game for your Dolphins and for the Patriots. What I noticed in this one, I didn't see too much of the game. I saw the highlights against the Chargers, but what I think is encouraging, if I'm a Dolphins fan, which you are, is the fact that they were kind of able to adjust their game plan and understand what the Patriots defense was going to give them, so offensively, and sort of adapt. So if you saw the highlights from week one, Tyreek Hill goes for over 200 yards receiving. It's an aerial show. I think they've had 466 total passing yards, 70 rushing yards in week one, and a win over the Chargers. A couple of nights ago against the Patriots, 244 yards passing, but Raheem Mostert, as you mentioned, much better day rushing, 145 yards on the ground. If you watch the game, the Patriots were playing a very unique style of defense where sometimes it felt like they were playing, three safeties deep. They had a very light box, as you like to say, and they were basically, you always hear the rhetoric, Bill Belichick will take away what you do best, and he understood Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle were a problem. The Dolphins adapted, and they feasted on the running game, especially outside zone, where the Patriots just could not, hold the edge, and the Dolphins were just getting first down after first down. It was sort of, can you live by death by 1,000 cuts? So a lot of times I fear with offenses and, with the Dolphins, are used to these big plays. Can you consistently get 6-7 yards a carry, 5 yards a carry, complete passes for short yardage without being tempted to take the deep shot or make a mistake? And for the most part, the Dolphins did that very well. Now, there were a couple mistakes made. Christian Gonzalez made a nice interception late in the game. Blocked field goal here, a missed field goal there. The Patriots hung around. But at the end of the day, you found a way to win the game. That's important. And the fact that your offense can sort of either have an aerial attack or can control the game with the ground game and just give what the defense gives them, that's an encouraging sign. So as you're sitting there as a Dolphins fan today, 2-0, be happy you're 2-0. And I think this offense will continue to be good all season long as Tua stays healthy, which has always been the question mark.
Always a caveat.
Starting this season, of course. There's always that asterisk beside Tua for whatever reason.
Always, if you throw up gang signs one week and then you go for 466 another, it's hard to say when you don't play a meaningful game for 9 months. The last time we saw him in action was December 25th against Green Bay last year. A pretty okay camp, but nothing, everything's pretty close to the best. So, He had a 249-yard day. He had an interception and a touchdown, like you said. Tyreek had 5 passes for 40 yards, so pretty quiet compared to him. Waddle 4 for 86. However, we did walk away a little lacerated after that. What was surprising to me was Ramondre Stevenson kind of disappeared, and they kind of put in Ezekiel Elliott, I think more for the pass protection for Mac. Mac made a couple nice throws, no question about that. The kid's got fire. I just don't know if he has the right coach. Belichick probably needs to hang him up. I think it's probably time. And
What? That is not the words I expected you to say.
what? That Belichick should retire?
Continue your thought, please. Continue your thought.
That Belichick should retire?
Sure, yeah. Go on, continue.
Yeah, I think he needs to hang him up. I think now loss after loss after loss, now being more losses than wins without Tom Brady. I think now everything's coming clearer into the picture, and we realize that Tom Brady was the reason why he was as successful as he was, not the other way around. And what, do you love Belichick?
No, I've argued your exact point for a very long time that Tom Brady was the reason that he was as successful as he was. But, Belichick still comes from remind me of the coach that taught him.
Parcells.
Bill Parcells. He still comes from that tree. And there are a lot of great coaches that continue on with that tree. And it is winning football. So I just didn't expect you to say that. And for a young quarterback like Matt Jones to come in and have a coach who knows what he's doing and knows the game plan, whether he's got Tom Brady or not, and knows how to teach and coach the game, it caught me off guard when you said it. That's why I went, what?
Savviness is one thing. Like having to play the Dolphins for the last 20 years twice a year. Hopefully you learn something. However, the game plan's fine. Like having that kind of like 20-year savvy is great, but like I think the game is now passing you by where that offense looks pretty old. It's not. We're putting Tyreek Hill in motion in ways that people think we're cheating, and then he's still kind of in the I formation. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I don't disagree with that, but to go and say that Belichick should retire, I also don't necessarily disagree with that. It's been a lot of years. Maybe it's time. However, to put those two together, no, you just want him to retire. But to put those two together, that almost says that, and I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but you're almost like, yeah, that guy can't coach. That guy can't coach without Tom Brady
anymore.
I don't think that's the case, and I don't think you just forget how to coach. I think he's still the best coach that the game's seen, regardless of who did it for him or not. But his record speaks for itself, and I don't think that Matt Jones will definitely. I don't think he's going to just find another coach that's going to treat him or teach him any better. Dan Rod?
Well, so first I'm going to just preface this by saying, obviously, AC as a Dolphins fan, I think whenever you talk about a division rival, we have to take it with a grain of salt.
Thank you.
So first of all, pun intended, you're salty because of all the times Tom Brady and those Patriots dominated your Dolphins. Now, fairly, your Dolphins were always good at home. Secondly, there's another motivation coming from a Dolphins fan that I think you want Bill Belichick to retire, and that's because the winningest coach in terms of overall wins of all time is none other than Don Shula. And you don't want Bill Belichick to catch Don Shula.
My man.
So I get that.
I love this dude.
All right.
But I just want to not necessarily take up the defense for Bill Belichick, but for Mac Jones in that offense. Bill Belichick cuts his teeth as a defensive sort of backs coach and a defensive specialist. If you're going to criticize the Patriots and their defense, I think that's where you start to criticize more fairly Bill Belichick. Now he runs the staff, and you can criticize some of the decisions he makes in terms of offense, whether it's players, because I think Bill does have a hand in, I don't know if he's a GM, but he does have a hand in player acquisition and roster
personnel. Yeah.
Personnel, exactly. But for the last 3 years, I think the hardest thing for a young quarterback in the NFL is to continue to adapt to different offensive coordinators. So we had Josh McDaniel, who then took the job with Las Vegas. So we lost Josh McDaniel. He then got a hybrid Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, two coaches that had no offensive coordinating experience. Right. And we saw how that went last year. It wasn't very good.
Not at all.
Now this year he has Bill O'Brien, who's been brought back. So Bill O'Brien, much like Josh McDaniels, head coach somewhere else, bounced around for a while. Bill brought them back. Bill O'Brien, a more established offense coordinator, had success in New England previously with Tom Brady. I think we need to give Mac Jones some time to adapt to Bill O'Brien in this offense and see if he can progress and maybe improve compared to what we've seen the last few years. Now, that being said, in New England, they're used to a certain standard of winning, and they have not had that standard since Tom Brady left. So I think the discussion is fair if we start to talk about, is the seat warm for Bill Belichick? Is he on the hot seat? Would Robert Kraft ever pull the trigger? Now, again, you have to wonder what is better out there. That's always a question. But this is the first time the New England Patriots have gone 0-2 to start a season since 2001. So for 21 straight years,
And
this
what
team
happened
never
there?
went 0-2. And in 2001, they started off 0-2. Week 2, they lost to the New York Jets. Mo Lewis hit Drew Bledsoe, and some guy nobody have ever heard of, Tom Brady, came in.
Tom Brady.
And then they started this unprecedented streak of 21 straight years, never losing their first 2 games of the season.
I had Bledsoe in my fantasy league that year.
So Mac Jones didn't get hurt. If Mac Jones had gotten hurt by the Dolphins, and whether it was Bailey Zappi or someone we had never heard of came in, then I'd be worried if I was an NFC East rival. But that didn't happen. But I just think it's a little unfair to necessarily point all the fingers at Bill Belichick. But I think we might have to look at Bill Belichick as a coach and consider maybe the end is closer than we thought. But
Well, I mean,
I'm not willing.
what kind of
go
credit?
that far.
What kind of credit do you have? Like 7 championships buys you a whole lot of credit. So
Right.
at one point, does Kraft say like, "Thanks for the memories," right? And that was an amazing run, but the game may have passed you by at this point. I mean, he's also an old man that he's probably just being told these things like, "Hey, Belichick is not," you know what I'm saying? Like, just be in his mind and say like in his ear and say like, "Look, who's winning? Andy Reid, the Philadelphia Eagles, Doug Peterson, people who are here to make offense, right? Defense obviously wins games, but if you don't have a snappy, quick, like what's the word? Like a gimmick offense to a certain level, like we run that. We'll put Tyreek Hill in motion, and he never stops, and we get people out of position all the time. And then he just runs and does whatever the hell he wants. That should be illegal. but
Tyreek Hill should be illegal.
No, the fact that you can be in so much motion, the fact that you can do so much motion. So that's the thing. It feels wrong, but case in point, they've exploited that. They figured that out and said, "Look, this is something that we can innovate to win." I don't see any innovation happening with these old school coaches. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to pick on you, but I feel like McCarthy is also down that road. Maybe not yet, but McCarthy might be at a level where, the game is different now. Not to segue back into the Cowboys, but that was perfect.
Well, no, but see, that's the interesting thing with Mike McCarthy, head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. But Kellen Moore had been the offensive coordinator for his first few years in Dallas. Kellen Moore has moved on to the Chargers. Mike McCarthy has assumed offensive play calling responsibilities. Now, week 1 against the Giants, big lead early, adverse weather conditions, call it what you want. But I think this is what we expected with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. Limiting the mistakes, being more efficient in his throws, 31 for 38, so a high completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Now, Sauce Gardner should have had a pick. That's on Sauce Gardner, but sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Patrick Mahomes has an interception because of Kadarius Toney, but it goes against Patrick Mahomes. So we can't really factor those in. It didn't happen, so it didn't happen. But, Dak Prescott, completion percentage over 80%, 81.6%. And that's, I think, what we're expecting. He's getting the ball out. He's being efficient. And his first game in the last 2 years, back-to-back games out of turnover. So if Mike McCarthy can continue to have this offense progress, I think what's encouraging about Dallas is this defense so far looks very good. And I'm not saying this is the 2001 Baltimore Ravens, where basically they told their offense just score, 11 points, 10, 12 points, 13 points. We'll hold them to 10 or we'll hold them under 21 every time. But, as long as you can limit mistakes and I'll just use the most recent example. The Cleveland Browns lost a football game where if you look at the stats and you just look at the box score, you could not think of a way this team lost a football game. But the fact of the matter is, they lost a game where their offense gave up basically, if you want to call it 12 or 14, if you're blaming the convert, of 26 points against. So that Cleveland Browns defense, let's call it 14, held them to 12 points. And they still lost the game 26-22 to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And AC, I think you said Monday night was a tough watch, probably both games.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know.
It was. I mean, if you like defense, the first half of that you know, the Cleveland Browns Pittsburgh game was great. All you saw was, I mean, right out of the gate, Deshaun Watson warming up. Here, I think I have a live feed of him while he threw that. This is this is a picture while he threw that interception.
But sorry, to bring my point back to Dallas, I just think let's see how Mike McCarthy progresses all season with the offensive play calling and for the Cowboys, and we will see. The one thing Mike McCarthy's been criticized as the head coach, his game management and his bad calling of timeouts to situations, not calling them another. So can he manage a game when it's going to come down to a final drive? Can Dak make the plays in a final drive? Can that defense hold up if they are up by 3 points, 2 minutes left, the opposing team driving, whether it's a Tua Tagovailoa or whomever, Brock Purdy and the 49ers, who I know they have coming up on the schedule. I don't even know if we play the Dolphins this year. So not until.
Oh, maybe. Yes. We play the NFC East. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, yeah. So we'll see the Dolphins. So Tua or a Josh Allen, right?
That's
so
going to be a special week.
We will see.
CeeDee Lamb, is CeeDee Lamb finally, how do you feel as a Cowboys fan about CeeDee Lamb? Is he any closer to Dez Bryant after 2 receiving touchdowns and setting up that pretty much the game winners? I mean, he knows he did that. He knows he set it up. So how do you feel? Is he becoming that for you, or was he already?
Well, see, is he the next Dez Bryant? No, he'll never be Dez Bryant because Dez Bryant and CeeDee Lamb are, in my opinion, 2 very different receivers.
True.
Dez Bryant was one of the best contested ball catchers I have seen in a long time. And Dez Bryant was a home run hitter, big play, sort of outside the numbers traditional wide receiver. CeeDee Lamb is not necessarily like your Tyreek Hill, but he is best when he is put in different situations where he can get the ball in his hands and make plays. He's a great run after catch guy. But no, I think CeeDee Lamb has proven he can be an elite number 1 wide receiver, and I think he deserves to be in the conversation of one of the top 10 to 15 wide receivers in the NFL. And what CeeDee Lamb will do is he will afford other receivers on the Cowboys to have single coverage and be in more advantageous situations because you do have to pay attention to CeeDee Lamb. Now, I was disappointed in the game Michael Gallup had. It's almost like I don't even think he had a catch, if I remember correctly. And Brandon Cooks didn't play. He was dealing with an injury. So we'll see what happens when Brandon Cook comes back. The tight ends were a little bit better. So that was encouraging. And if you want to nitpick on the Cowboys, too many field goals, not enough touchdowns, not as many touchdowns in the red zone as you could have hoped for, you'd want to see. But again, you just want to go with the flow of the game. You understand that Jets defense is still supposed to be one of the top 5 in the NFL. Things get tighter around the goal line in that red zone area. And, walking away with a 30-10 victory, I don't think we do love to grade wins and losses, but a win is a win, and we move on, and we'll see what happens next week. I think you just take away the positives, you work on what you need to work on, and we move on. So, I'm a cautiously optimistic Cowboys fan.
If we stop grading wins and losses, we might as well stop doing the show. Zach Wilson threw 3 interceptions, and I think that was a huge part of the win. The Cowboys advanced to 2-0, but after the 40-0 rout, it was a lot different of a game, that's for sure. And I'm excited to see a little bit more competition coming up in the schedule, especially when you see a certain Aqua team coming down. So I like Jerry Jones said, I like how we've done a different way, and that's good. No, I'm kidding.
Might I just point out that Drunk Neighbor was mad. He was over tonight. He was mad that even though they were ahead so far, that when they had the ball on the whatever yard line, why didn't they give it to Pollard and punch it in again?
I agree.
He is a big Pollard fan, as am I. I think he's great. But
I am this
Drunk
season.
Neighbor, of course, the big Cowboy fan as well. Maybe we'll have you. We don't need him on the show. Never mind.
Drunk Neighbor.
Speaking about not punching it in, we're going to make that smooth transition to a team that could not punch it in. Unfortunately, Dave, that was your Jacksonville Jaguars. I think one of the most anticipated matchups on the week 2 slate. The Kansas City Chiefs at 0-1, taking on the 1-0 Jacksonville Jaguars in Jacksonville. And
Duval.
And what happened?
What happened? So the state of Florida was primed for another big victory. The Gators upset the Tennessee Volunteers in the swamp a day earlier. And then you come out and, I don't know, lay an egg.
Well, here's what happened. Let me just start by.
I picked the Jags last week. Let me start off by saying that. I'm going to lay that at your feet. I picked the Jags.
That's what I was going to start with.
+3.
Jinxed us.
Not the money.
What I'm going to start with, and it harkens back to McCartney and Belichick and hot seats and everything. There's no hot seat. It's week 2. Everybody, there's not even a warm seat yet for anybody.
Josh McDaniel in the Las Vegas Raiders seat is extremely
2.
hot.
Dude, it's week 2. It's week 2. Don't get too excited or unexcited about any team yet.
You go ask Brandon Staley how hot his seat is there in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Right. But anyways, continue.
With Justin
the thing we talked about at the end of week 1 was, oh my God, is this gonna continue? Are the Dolphins gonna light up the stage with, like they did? Are the Jaguars gonna do this? Are the Cowboys? Is their defense really that good? There's so much that happened. Then going into week 2. AC did mention he did pick the Jaguars. I had many people ask me, Jaguars going to win? Part of my response was, I hope not, which doesn't make sense for a Jaguars fan. Of course, I hope they win every time. But last week, we also talked about the teams that really go far in the playoffs are those teams that figure it out and get it together for the second half of the season. I'm not all that worried. Yes, we did lose, but let me tell you something. Kansas City did not look that good. Jaguars looked even worse. Obviously, they lost the game. There's a lot of things could have happened. Kelsey was in the game. He wasn't really a factor for the majority of it. Jaguars didn't look terrible. If they could have, I don't know. Here's what they really need to learn how to do. I guess just put 2 feet in bounds instead of 1, because I think we missed 3 touchdowns that way, where it was right on the edge. I'm not all that worried yet. It was not a good game. It was technically, for game of the week, it was a boring-ass game. I did watch a lot of Red Zone. They showed that game kind of quite a bit, basically when Kansas City could get it together. I wasn't upset about the defense at the beginning. I think the defense held Kansas City in check for most of the time, but you can't do that all game and not score points and give Patrick Mahomes the ball with time left in the half or time left in the game. Granted, it was never even close. Trevor Lawrence, Ridley, Calvin Kirk. Actually, Kirk got probably more receptions than anyone. Ridley wasn't even targeted hardly, it didn't seem like. I don't know. It was just kind of a weak performance by my team. I'll own it. I don't have to own it. I'm not on the team, but as a fan, I'll own it.
I mean, I feel pretty good about Christian Kirk coming off of 110-yard performance. There's things to take away from there.
Well, he didn't catch the ball, but 1 catch for 8 yards game 1. So, I mean, for him actually to get targeted.
Oh, froze up. Oh. Kind of froze up. He froze up like Trevor Lawrence back there.
Yeah, that's the no internet connection. Yeah, froze up.
Perfect.
But no, I wasn't unhappy with it. I wasn't happy with it. They looked like a week 2 team still trying. Kansas City still got their. They're still looking up to them. They've still got their number, and I think it'll take some time. I'm not really worried. I think the Jaguars will be fine. Also, I think Kansas City is going to be fine as well. But Kansas City didn't look great either. Neither of them look like superpowers. I don't think either of them in week 2 are a team you need to worry about. Now, which team is going to figure it out by the end of the season? And which team is going to come together as a team by the end of the season? And then we'll go from there. Patrick Mahomes, the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, well, they just said the exact same thing I said. Yeah, it was. I'll say the same thing about the Jags week 2. There were a lot of mistakes. There were some good things still, like you mentioned, Christian Kirk. Got targeted definitely more than he did week 1. I think he got 1 reception in week 1 for 8 yards. I don't know.
There's different game plans, right? There's different, like, we didn't use Tyreek Hill as much. We more Mostert, more running, more game clock. I would rather see that. I would rather see specific game plans for specific teams than just saying, you know what, our sheer athleticism is going to get us through. Because sometimes that's just not enough. You actually need a good coach. You just don't, there's clock management, there's understanding personnel, there's different packages. So many things are happening at once. And I would be one of the things, aside from Christian Kirk, I'd be happy that I saw a lot of those different packages going on, real coaching. So coaching is no longer your problem.
That part is a fact, and that part's true. And not only that, but our defensive game plan, whatever we were doing on defense to limit what Mahomes was doing. Now, how long can you do that without running out of energy because you're always out there? Actually, Jacksonville had the ball the majority of the time and a lot. I know for the first half, but how many times can you expect him not to actually connect?
Time of possession for Jacksonville was 47% of the time at 28-11. KC got the edge there at 53%. But
I'm still not that worried. We're still going places. We're still gonna win the division. We'll see as we go forward. But what'd you guys think?
Well, listen, Dave, this is what I wanted to say, okay? I wanted to interrupt you, but I let you finish, okay? I'm going to be nice to you. You are sounding like a Jaguars fan that is used to disappointment year in and year out. The fact of the matter is, your Jaguars team is supposed to be the cream of the crop in that AFC South. You should be a perennial playoff team with the quarterback that you have, Trevor Lawrence. Your expectations are now better than just being a good, plucky, shucks, we tried type of team. You got to be up there swinging with the big boys, with the Kansas City Chiefs, with the Cincinnati Bengals, with the Baltimore Ravens, with the Buffalo Bills of the world, with the Miami Dolphins of the world. We'll throw them in there. These are measuring stick games for teams that have Super Bowl aspirations. We're not talking about teams that just want to, maybe surprise a few teams, win a few games, improve upon a season from a year ago. You are now a team that people expect to make the playoffs, and not only make the playoffs, but possibly compete for a division title, conference title, but a Super Bowl.
Most definitely
a measuring stick game. Now, why does this game matter? I understand your sentiments. Week 2, it does matter. It doesn't matter. The team still needs to improve, learn from it. And the end of the season, it does matter how you're playing as the season winds down going to the playoffs. It does matter for this, however. If Jacksonville and Kansas City are tied at the end of the season for the best record in the conference, the AFC will then go through Kansas City, not Jacksonville. I think if I asked you today, are you more confident if the AFC Championship game is Jacksonville at Kansas City or Kansas City at Jacksonville, you would much rather have that game at home. So I think that's where this game is important. But I know that you are tempered expectations, and I don't know if that's because, again, you are a cautiously optimistic fan or you are just used to all the years of futility.
It's three things. It's three things. It's that. The second thing is, man, I'm trying to still fly. Not me. I'm hoping they still fly under the radar. Come on, we're not that good.
Those days are gone. Those days are gone. You have two rookie.
But thirdly, I'm not that worried, and honestly, because it is week 2, and I would have wished for them to connect better, to do some of the basics better, catching the ball with 2 feet in bounds. But I'm not that worried because it's week 2, and because I still think, we've got a lot of season to go, and they're only going to get better from here.
You have 2 rookie quarterbacks in that division. There's absolutely no.
We are the cream of the crop in that division.
There's no reason, but that alone should get you in the playoffs. That alone, with just a decent outing, should get you in the playoffs. 2 rookie quarterbacks and fucking Ryan Tannehill.
And there are 2 schools of thought. There is, can things that have happened in the past, trends, whatever the case may be, do they really factor into the current season? Case in point, I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals have beaten the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh in like 20 years or something crazy like that, or 10 years. And Pittsburgh hasn't lost a Monday night game, and whatever the stat is. How does that matter with when they played yesterday? But these are 2 teams that are playing this year. Now Jacksonville lost to Kansas City in the playoffs last year. Now this year they lose again. Now do the doubts start to creep in when you're playing Kansas City? I think it's a confidence thing, a swagger type thing. But again, it's early in the season. Obviously, as a Cowboys fan, we're not looking ahead past Arizona or New England, but Week 5 at San Francisco on Sunday Night Football, that is a measuring stick game for the Cowboys. Even if they go in 4-0 and they lose that game to the 49ers, all the talk on Monday will be the Cowboys were pretenders this whole time, or the Cowboys are a good team, but they'll never beat the 49ers
Who did they
because
beat?
they've lost the 49ers
Right.
the last 2 years, right? The Jets and
Right.
the Giants. They have the Cardinals and the Patriots. They could lose to the Cardinals this week. Now they're the Cowboys, so maybe not. They could lose to the Cardinals. They could lose to the Patriots, be 2-2, but somehow beat the 49ers, and maybe the 49ers are undefeated. And of course, the talk would be, are the Cowboys the best team in football? Cowboys are polarizing different than the Jaguars. The Cowboys will never fly under the radar no matter what the record is. But there are certain games on the schedule, no matter when they are measuring stick games. And as a Jaguars fan, Dave, you just have to hope you learn from your mistakes and realize, like you said, there maybe are a few plays that if they go the other way, we're talking about this game much differently. But I just want to bring up that the Kansas City Chiefs do not make history or do not add their name to the record books, because do either of you know how many Super Bowl defending teams start a season 0-2 the following year in the history of the 57 Super Bowls?
I knew this.
Nope. No idea.
Zero.
Well, so Kansas City did not make the list. So now 57 teams have started a season after winning a Super Bowl. Only 4 of those teams have started off 0-2 the following year. The 82 49ers, who were in a strike-shortened season, finished the season 3-6. So I don't know what you want to make with that record.
Asterisk,
The New York Giants in 87, who actually had a Week 3 game canceled because of a strike. So they started off 0-2, and they finished. They actually started 0-5. Finished season 6-9. In 87, I think it was Phil Simms. The 99 Broncos, who came off of back-to-back Super Bowls. John Elway retired, and they went 6-10. But in between the 99 Broncos and the 87 Giants, the glowing example of 0-2 futility to prominence, the 93 Cowboys. So they win the 92 Super Bowl. The 93 Cowboys win 0-2, and this is where I say running backs were at their highest value. Emmitt Smith held out the first 2 weeks. Jerry Jones could not sign him fast enough for Week 3. They came back. They finished the season 12-4 and went on to win that Super Bowl back-to-back years.
And who did they play?
The Buffalo Bills.
Who had running back?
Thurman Thomas.
Thurman Thomas, man. What a badass. And they couldn't get it done 3 times. Just flip the coin.
4 times.
Oh, man.
4 times. I'm sorry. 4 times in a row. They could not. Just if you flip it like this. I mean, we all know how the cards fell, but my God, we could be singing a different tune if Thurman Thomas, or Jim, he went to UM. Jim Kelly would have done it.
Yeah.
That's all that they needed. And why did it work out so well? What is it? Offensive line? Is that why it worked out for the Cowboys and not the Bills 4 times in a row? They were clearly poised to win it once. My God, was it that good of a Cowboys stifling defense where Thurman Thomas couldn't get it done?
Again, I think it's just the demons. And Dave, the other thing is, you could have put the Chiefs in 0-2, a devastating hole. Who knows if the Chiefs are in turmoil, and who knows what the talk is amongst pundits, whomever, this show. 0-2 Chiefs. Are the Chiefs now in trouble? Are the Chiefs going to make the playoffs at 0-2? All right. But now at 1-1, everyone still thinks the Chiefs are probably the best team in the AFC.
Yeah,
but
they still are.
They didn't make any moves to improve the wide receivers. They only took away, but they didn't add. So the same way the Dolphins didn't add to. They didn't add. The Dolphins didn't add any more offensive line help, which we needed. Same thing with these people. You can only do so much with Travis Kelce. They're going to take away the middle of the field. Even if they don't, how many times can you do that before someone gets hurt? Obviously, he's now prone to a knee injury. Not saying that's going to happen again, but it's on your mind. Who are you going to you take away? Juju. You take away Mecole Hardman. Juju goes to New England. Mecole Hardman goes to the Jets. Who else did they have? No more. Sammy Watkins has been gone. I can't. I mean, who are we throwing the ball to? Who has a KC wide receiver?
That's the whole point. Your tight end can be your top receiver, and obviously in this case it is. Not only the top receiver, the best receiver on that team.
But then you need 2 of them. You can't just have one.
But that's exactly the point. Gronk was the best receiver on multiple Tom Brady teams. And that's awesome to have that connection. But you're right. You've got to have somebody else. You've got to have a deep threat in there. You've got to have somebody. Obviously, that tight end's going to play the middle, going to be the possession receiver in a lot of cases. But you got to have somebody to take the the cornerbacks deep and get them off that line of scrimmage.
But again, Dave, your Jaguars gave them another week to figure it out. At 1-1 now, it doesn't matter. They have another week to figure it out. And, of course, they have the Chicago Bears coming to town in week 3. So I guess you can already pencil in a victory for the Chiefs there. And if you look you look at it, if you want to bring up the Chiefs schedule, I know that wasn't part of the programming today, but then they have at the Jets, at the Vikings. So we will grill Brandon for sure on that one.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And then they have a divisional grind. So throw out the records here. Who knows what will happen against the Broncos, Chargers, Broncos 3 weeks in a row. And then the Miami Dolphins. So we will have this talk in week 9. Are the Miami Dolphins the team that could possibly take down the Chiefs? And where does that stack the Dolphins up against the Chiefs for future maybe playoff matchups down the line? So, Dave, your Jaguars failed us in week 2, but AC's Dolphins in week 9 will give us a chance.
We'll come and save it again. Don't you worry. Look who's here. So let's take a quick look at the Jackson. Let's staying with
and
the
that
segment.
Game must be in London because it's a 9:30 a.m. Eastern start time. So that's a 6:30 a.m. kickoff for you, AC.
Dude, I think I was doing my podcast with Rocksteady. By the way, let me say hi to Rocksteady real quick. Rocksteady, a good friend of ours, is listening. It might not be anymore, but he says in his Australian accent, "This is something I don't understand properly, but it's about the universally understood subject of men." Subject by men, so football, yes, sports ball. So fill in whatever sports you want there, but thank you, brother, for coming by. I did want to bring up the Jacksonville Jaguars schedule really quick because I want to just make sure that kind of we understand what Dave has coming up. So here we go, Texans. So that's going to be a win, right? Let me bring this up here so everybody can see it.
Well, I will hope so, but who knows what we saw this week.
I'm scaring. I'm really kind of getting scared for him. So Falcons versus Bills at home.
And I believe so. Falcons Bills. I believe those are back-to-back London games. I think Jags will be the first ever team to go back-to-back in London.
Yes.
Oh, so, they're staying there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're staying there a week in between. That is correct.
Cool.
And so that's tough because whether you're home or away, technically they're at Buffalo, but they're in London. So.
Right, but that's home. Wembley's home. Wembley's for the Jaguars.
Jags always play good in England. I'm actually fine with that. And not only that, they'll get that week there. They're not going to have the jet lag and the time change for that second game. You know what I mean? They always play great there. I'm fine with that.
Just one word of warning. The first game against the Falcons, Kyle Pitts, I don't know how many touchdowns he's had since. His first ever touchdown came in London, and he didn't have many more that season. So Kyle Pitts is pretty efficient in London. So just watch out for that.
It must be
calling my shot right now. Kyle Pitts will score a touchdown.
Hot take, everybody. You heard it here first. NFL HQ.
Anytime touchdown scorer, Kyle Pitts in London.
Nice. I have him in fantasy. He doesn't do jack shit.
I'm play him that week.
So Bills. So probably going to lose that game, bud. If you couldn't hang against the KC Chiefs, Bills are probably going to get it because they're going to be pissed by the time they get to you. Versus the Colts at the Saints with Derek Carr, at the Steelers, hard game last night. Best defense in the NFL with the 49ers. And then you have a nice back end schedule as well with the Bengals, Browns, Ravens, Bucks, Panthers, and Titans. God.
This is what happens when you're a division winner a year ago. The NFL, the parity, they obviously, if you don't know, the way that they make the schedule, you play everyone in your own division twice, home and away. You then pick one division in conference, one division out of conference. You play that whole division, but then you play the other two teams in your conference. Division, or you're not playing where you sit. So if you're the number one Jaguars, you're going to play the number one team of the AFC East, the AFC South, and the AFC West. If you're the fourth place team, then you play the fourth place team, how they finished a year ago. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to finish in the same order the next year, but a lot of times you look at the schedule when you see the Bengals or you see a team like the Chiefs or the Bills, obviously they are perennial of late division winners, so they appear to be tougher teams. Now, that being said, that's going to be a week 13 game, I think, against Cincinnati. Who knows where they are at this point? Because if we're going to talk about a game that didn't involve one of our hometown teams or one of our favorite teams this week, I think we have to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals going down 0-2, losing 2 divisional games, not only to the Cleveland Browns a week ago, but the Baltimore Ravens last week. But more importantly, you saw Joe Burrow towards the end of that game limp off that sore calf he suffered in training camp. that could linger. And there's talk that Joe Burrow might sit down for a week or two to fully recover or try to recover, because these calf injuries, the only way they're going to get better is with rest. And can you really rest your quarterback right now? And for how long of time? What kind of amount of time?
I'll tell you
But
that even if they win this game coming up, 1-2 is very different than 0-3. Very different, like unbelievably
absolutely.
different. And this
1-1
fast-paced
is
game,
way better, different than 0-2. But
oh my
continue.
gosh! And so you could realistically see him sitting out and then starting 0-4. That's a wash of a season. You're probably not going to win that division at that point unless you, go absolutely apeshit for 10 games straight. Unlikely with the parity in this league. So Lamar Jackson did more than enough to beat the Bengals, even without injured running back J.K. Dobbins, another one in the dustbin of injuries. The Ravens' explosive quarterback threw 2 touchdown passes and extended drives with his legs as Baltimore outlasted slow starting Cincinnati for the second week in a row. We cannot. The weather did not pose a problem here. What's wrong with Joe Burrow? Is he really injured? Like that injured? Are we blaming it on that?
I think the calf plays a factor, and no preseason or not a lot of training camp, because we
Yeah.
can't discount the number of reps he missed with these guys because he was injured. But let me just say, I just want to get back to this commentary before we lose the thought.
Yeah.
The weather this week, way better than the weather in week 1. It was a
Yeah.
joy to watch football in beautiful sunshine and near perfect conditions across all the games, at least that I saw the highlights for or that I watched this week. So kudos to the weather this week. They were the big winner.
Thank you, Gaia, the Earth Mother, for shining upon us sunshine and making domes. Thank God we have domes in some places. But yeah, the Ravens are looking pretty good. Lamar, after getting paid 24 for 33 for 237 yards, he ran for 54 more. So whoever says that he doesn't throw enough or he's in the in the mid 200s, you forget that he's between 50 and 75 yards per game on his feet. He's going to have to do more without Dobbins. He completely blew out his Achilles, and like Lamar, like you said, John Harbaugh said he's playing winning football. You got a rhythm early. You had some passes and some huge plays down the field. Cincinnati is starting 0-2 for the second year in a row, and they still won the division after 0-2. So I might eat my words.
Exactly, and that's the most current case, 2-0 versus 0-2. So since 1990, when they expanded the playoff system, and it's really difficult because even of recent adoration of the playoffs or adaptation of the playoffs, they have now gone to a 17-game schedule. So the data is not really fully in terms of starting 0-2 with that added game of the season. But the most recent example, the Cincinnati Bengals went from 0-2 to not only making the playoffs, winning the division, but they went to the conference championship game against the Chiefs a year ago. But since 1990, if you start off 2-0, almost a 64% chance of making the playoffs, 63.8 versus 0-2, 41.8%. Now, when I read that, 41% chance doesn't sound that drastic to me, but I guess if you factor that into, if you got 41% in all your grades at school, you'd never pass. So
that's an unbelievable point. That's nail in the head. So, it's going to be hard to watch the Cincinnati Bengals, and I believe there's an ebb and flow, and that's why I went so heavy on the Cleveland Browns this year, because I believe that Deshaun Watson can't be bad every year. So you can pretty much bet in this league, if you're up one year, you're going to be down the next. If you do too well, you get that first place schedule, like you said. If you do okay, kind of mediocre, you get that okay draft pick. If you did anything to mortgage your future throughout the year or on the offseason, you're up shit's creek without a paddle. If you didn't hit on some of your draft picks, and if you didn't hit on maybe a free agent that might have fit your scheme, you're done. Your cap's fucked. You can't manage your money on the team. It's a cascading apocalyptic effect. That's why GMs, front office people, are so incredibly important. So, and John Harbaugh, obviously, to bring it back to these people, he's one of those like Mike Tomlin guys. He's going to be there for a long time. So,
and he has been there for a long time.
yeah. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and speaking of which, just trivia question: how many? So it's been four coaches on the Pittsburgh Steelers for the last 50 years. Is that right?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it was like Chuck
4 or
Noll.
3. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, and then Mike Tomlin.
Mike
3,
Tomlin.
no?
Yeah, trying to.
And they've all won Super Bowls.
It seems unrealistic, but obviously that model works. But again, how big is that sample size of like if you have 20 years to win one and you win one, like that's a long time. Like is Aaron Rodgers as good as you know Eli Manning because he doesn't have two, he only has one from 2010? Is that how we grade people? I
I
think
think
basically
that's how we
it is.
grade quarterbacks. I
Yeah.
think quarterbacks unfairly get tagged with how many Super Bowls they won. I don't think for coaches we factor that in as much. I think right now Mike Tomlin can hang his hat on the fact that whenever you talk about Mike Tomlin, he's never had a losing season as head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I think as long as he keeps that sort of mystique about it, then we'll always regard Mike Tomlin in such high regard. But I think in a league where we talk about turnover, what they call it, Black Monday at the end of the season. We see coaches get fired all the
Yeah.
time. Any of these coaches that can stay on with the team for 5, 6, let alone, 10, 15, 20 years, I think that's a real testament to just, how good they are as coaches, especially in an NFL where, you know, every year you get older, but your players are still young kids. And 20-year-olds in 2023, 23-year-olds are much different than maybe they were in 2000 or 2010. And of course, we have to go back and poke a little fun at Matthew Stafford
Hmm.
because his wife spoke maybe a little out of turn on her podcast and said that Matthew had a hard time relating to some of the younger teammates. Well, that has to be true for coaches as well. It's been a long time since Bill Belichick has been 25 years old, but every year that locker room's got to be a little bit different than it was the year before.
Absolutely. And you need, and more to my point from earlier, when the game passes you by, it's also culturally. It's not just from an X's and O standpoint, which of course that's a huge thing. I do think that the game passes people by X's and O's. Like I don't think Bill Parcells would be as well, that's a bad example because he would build teams inside out. So he'd probably have something good there. But the speed of the game, uh, the nuance of the new rules, you're going to eventually need your Mike McDaniels. You're eventually going to need your Gannons. You're eventually going to need your McVays and people who are young. Is there a place for Andy Reid and his knowledge and all that? Of course, yeah, absolutely. But just like the president, I think we got to get a little younger to understand the young people that are coming in because these are college kids. These are college kids coming in from playing from Deion Sanders, who is the ultimate right child molder. That sounded weird, but he molds kids into men, and that's what he hangs his hat on. So, and then you go to this very cold, ineffectual league that just uses you up and your body gets tossed around for money. If there was a bit more, I don't know, emotion like that, we need Dick Vermeil. We need Dick Vermeil in the Rams back, crying everywhere. you know, just a more of a connection. Like for those ancient people are not going to be able to connect and have those people buy in. These are professionals now, but they're young. You know.
Yeah, I'm just kind of looking at when coaches were hired. So I think Bill Belichick is the longest tenured coach with any team right now. And the crazy
Yeah.
thing is, no coach has been with a team since before the turn of the millennium. So Bill Belichick was hired in 2000, and he is obviously the longest tenured coach with any team. And it's just crazy to look at how many coaches were hired, to new teams in 2022, 2021, 2023. You see it everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Mike Tomlin, 2007, one of the longest tenured coaches, as we mentioned. Jim Harbaugh was hired a year later in 2008 by the Ravens, if I'm reading this correctly. And then, it goes to someone like Sean McVay. I don't think he's in the top 3 or 4. Andy Reid, 2013 with the Chiefs. But Sean McVay in 2017, he might be the 5th longest tenured coach with any one team, which
Mm.
is really saying a lot
And he was
about
37. I believe he was 37 when he joined there. He was just so
I
young.
think he's 37 now.
Now,
Yeah. So
my gosh.
he's 37 now, and he was hired 6 years ago. He was 31 when he got that job.
Oh my God, he's a baby. I mean, could you imagine that? Like, you can go either way. What does that kid know? Most people have forgotten the amount of football that kid knows. I don't know. Sometimes you need some fresh, non-encumbered. I'm sorry, that's not a word. Unencumbered, thought processes going on with all of the shit that you used to, throw down in the '90s. It just doesn't work like that anymore. So you need somebody to take advantage of the nuances of the game, and somebody who can connect with the kids. I think that's a huge thing because the draft is very, very important. Name me a team that drafted badly and won the Super Bowl. I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, and it's an unfair assessment, but the first one that comes to mind just of recent is the San Francisco 49ers got away with making a
Thank
very
you.
bad decision
There's
of
one.
trading up for Trey Lance with the 3rd overall pick, but they have drafted well in other areas. You can say that they got a very great draft pick, which makes up for the draft pick of Trey Lance in Brock Purdy. And sometimes you can overcome it. I think the criticism with Bill Belichick of late has been a lot of his draft picks, especially his first round ones, have not hit and have not been successful. Now, Tom Brady masked a lot of those issues when he was there, but you're seeing now if you're not hitting on talent, it's going to hurt you. But if you are a fan of Bill Belichick, you can say, well, Christian Gonzalez, the first round pick, the DB, he's played well. He's starting. He got a pick
That
against
is
Tua.
such a
So
Belichick pick,
maybe,
right?
yeah.
Such a Belichick pick. He loves those guys, those utilitarian, like, it's hard to put into words, but you know what I'm talking about. The prototypical, like, blue
Well,
collar.
it's always crazy. Like you see a Bill Belichick team, you're going to see a guy from Rutgers. There's always a guy from Rutgers on there.
Yes.
You always hear of, I think it's Matthew Duggar, Kyle Duggar from Lenore Rhine. Like you're going to always find these guys from these obscure colleges. But
Or a free agent on the uptick of, trying to make a comeback, or the uptick. Dante Stallworth after killing a guy. I mean,
Randy
so
Moss revitalized
Randy
career in New
Moss.
England.
Exactly.
As a Dolphins fan, you had Wes Welker in your locker room, and he
That was
obviously
another time, Dan. Come on, man. That was another time. That was like Joe Philbin time. You can't bring that up. Wow. We thought Joe Philbin was going to be the man. We thought Joe Philbin was like, oh my God, that's Aaron Rodgers' offense. Of course we're going to have Aaron Rodgers here.
And
The fuck
since
out
we're
of
digging up the old wounds, wasn't there a summer where it was between Dante Culpepper and Drew Brees? And Drew Brees was coming off an injury that scared you or scared the Dolphins, so they went with Dante Culpepper.
Couldn't pass his shoulder, whatever fakakta doctor we had down here said, no, let's pass on future Hall of Famer Drew Brees and let him go to the Saints for a bag of chips. Or we can have Dante Culpepper, who looks like he's healthy, but he's really not. So it was like they pulled the wool over our medical staff's eyes. They're like, this guy looks healthy, right? Yeah, well, that's the guy who's really injured. And this guy, the shoulder guy, I know he looks short, but he can take it. Could you imagine with the kind of weapons that we had on the outside? I don't want to. But guys, I want to kind of wrap this up by looking at the power rankings for this week up to now.
Let's do that. And
of course,
just
we'll
want to
bring up the
confirm,
power
I'm
rankings. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I just want to make sure I'm back. I'm having connection issues. I apologize.
You're good.
And then battery issues. I want to make sure I'm back and here and live. Okay, because I missed it a little bit. I apologize to you guys. I apologize to the audience and the audience listening later. But I'm back and yeah, I'm good. I think I'm all right for the.
You're like Patrick Swayze in Ghost. We don't see you.
So, as you bring up the power rankings, I just want to preface 2-0. There's only, I think, 9 teams that are still 2-0. The Miami Dolphins are 2-0, and the Baltimore Ravens are 2-0 in the AFC. The NFC has 3 teams in the NFC East and 3 teams in the NFC South that are all 2-0. So Dallas, Philly, Washington, San Francisco is also 2-0. They don't play either of those 2 divisions. But Atlanta, New Orleans, and Tampa Bay are all undefeated in the NFC South. And what's fascinating in both the South and the East is the only losses that have happened in those 2 divisions were against divisional opponents. Carolina lost 2 games to divisional opponents, and of course the Giants lost to the Cowboys on Sunday night in Week 1. So neither teams from Carolina, from the NFC East or South, have lost outside of the division or have lost, period. So those are your teams going in 2-0. Meanwhile, on the opposite end of the spectrum, 0-2, Patriots, Chargers, Broncos, Bengals, Texans. So a lot of concern on there. And then Cardinals, Vikings, Bears, and Panthers. So Vikings, a playoff team from a year ago. Brandon's team, we'll talk about them for a brief second. And of course, the Bengals, those are 2 teams that are probably more concerned there because those are teams that had good seasons a year ago. And when it comes to Brandon's Vikings, what a difference a year makes. Last year, the Vikings had, I believe, a 13-4 record, but they were an incredible, 10-0, 9-0 in 1-score games. Meanwhile, they start off this year losing 2 1-score games back to back. So when it comes down to it, it's sometimes a flip of a coin, whatever you want to call it, a toe tap here, toe tap there. And that could change your record from being 2-0 to 0-2, 13-4 to 4-13. Of course, we're not wishing that on the Vikings. Just circling back to the Patriots were a toe tap away from possibly going and getting a game-tying score against the Eagles. And then this week, AC, you're sitting there. Former Dolphin Mike Gesicki catches a pass. He's short of the first down on 4th down, pitches it back to a lineman who surges forward, and then they rule he fell down inches short of a first down. So again, Al Pacino, was it Al Pacino on any given Sunday? It's a game of inches. Well, twice the Patriots inches away from extending drives to possibly tie football games. But if ifs and buts were candy and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas. So bring up these power rankings, and I'm sure they're going to be heavily influenced on 2-0 teams or teams that are 1-1 that were probably top of the power rankings prior to losing one of those two teams.
Oh, God.
I love these stats. I just love them so
it's like
well.
Yeah, it's like a symphony in my mind. It's like
You're like a computer.
Yeah. So agree with them or not, here come those power rankings. And
just
yes,
think if they gave me the resources to do this 24/7, where I could actually study tape all, like if I could be the next Chris Mortensen or someone, just imagine if they gave that kind of power.
Just in my underwear, like who was the guy with the ponytail?
John Clayton, I want to say.
John Clayton. Mom, the meatballs are ready. Like
Dan Rod, you're like the Sheldon of this show. You really are.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all bring a little bit. I mean, Dan Rod obviously is extremely learned and polished. And you,
I'm a Jaguars fan.
I'm the local Jag. That's a different show.
And you bring that 1979 NFL magic, whatever.
All right, power
Dave, who did you cheer for before the Jaguars became a team? Because obviously, was it 90?
As a kid, I was a Steelers fan. Okay. As a kid, I was a Steelers fan.
Ew.
And what made you change from the Steelers?
Because I kind of quit. I was a Steelers fan because I had I knew some people that were Cowboys fans, and back then, late 70s, you had to be. I'm showing my age now. You had to pick one or the other. You didn't have to. I also kind of like the Oilers.
You look good for 92, Dave. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But thank you, sir. As I got older, then I went to high school and I was in the Navy for a few years. I literally quit watching football altogether. Came back and kind of started. That's when fantasy football kind of started to take off a while ago. Also aging myself. And I'm like, you know what? I need to pick a new team. And it just so happened that the Panthers and the Jaguars were coming out that year, and I picked it on colors alone. Nice. I thought this color of blue looked better than the Panthers color of blue. Black, blue, and silver just didn't look as good as.
But I don't like teal. Teal is too green.
The teal, black, and gold. So I picked them. Bought a jacket, bought a Brunel jersey, and I've been a fan ever since.
It wasn't because you saw that National Geographic animal versus animal video and a Jaguar actually defeated a panther. That wasn't why you chose the Jaguars.
Like, oh my God, a Jaguar!
No, but if that exists for real, send that to me because I want to see it.
It's funny because so the Jaguars and the Panthers, 1995, and back then your Jaguars, Dave, competing in the AFC Central against your Pittsburgh Steelers.
They were,
and this is why I wonder how a Steelers fan becomes a Jaguars fan, because the Steelers have always been decent or good. They never had too many lean years. 1995, Steelers were the cream of the crop in the AFC Central, 11-5. Jaguars 4-12 for their.
No, my dad, a Baltimore Colts fan, used to be in the AFC East, and that's how we split off.
And then they went to Indianapolis, and of course those Browns, like we talked about, they went to Baltimore now. But actually, the first year, I liked as a kid, I liked both the Steelers and the Oilers, which didn't make sense because they were always in the same division. But I liked the flashiness of the Oilers, those powder blue and white uniforms, so I've always liked them. The Warren Moon years when he was the quarterback. And then I got to play him on Tecmo Bowl. And I believe that first year of the Jaguars was I think it was only 1 year with the Oilers in the same division, because then the Oilers moved to Tennessee and became the Tennessee Oilers for a while, for 1 year before becoming the Titans. And then, of course, they mixed the whole thing up like a year later and
So
made
the
an
moral,
AFC.
the moral of the story is don't buy any jerseys with names on them. Just,
like
you know,
all of mine.
I
I
almost
think
bought a
they
Minka.
should just have Velcro nameplates that you can just buy new nameplates.
Right.
Although I guess you'd
Dude.
also have to change the numbers too, which could be interesting. But I think by 2024 we should have the technology where the jerseys could have virtual numbers on them or some sort of LED number system where they could just change. You could just change them as you want it to go.
Maybe
But
a satellite can throw it
that
down
could be
on me.
a billion dollar idea that I've just given away for free. So
Speaking of Velcro
End stream.
Speaking of Velcro nameplates, did anyone have an Ocho Cinco back in the day, or?
Even though he's from South Florida, he's from Miami. No, I could never do that. I could never do
No,
that.
I get it. All right,
I've never
rain.
owned anything else. I'd also done before. You know what really grinds my gears when people flip flop. Like my brother-in-law Johnny, what's up, fam? Is in the audience. He's watching. He had no choice. He's from Las Vegas, but needed to be a Chargers fan because they had no team, right? So he has no choice. But there are people who just 1 year are Kansas City Chiefs fans,
No.
and next year they love the Green Bay Packers. I don't understand that. Imagine like you only like the Cowboys one day a year, Dan. Like that doesn't even
one season at a time. I think what's going to happen. I don't want to pigeonhole the youth of today's day and age, but I think obviously access is much more easy to players through social media and things. And I think what you're going to find is people will cheer for players more so than they will teams, and also fantasy, right? Makes a big deal. So now you're going to cheer for players. So if you're a fan of a player, you're going to cheer for a team that they play on. So if you liked Tom Brady in New England, but you like Tom Brady, you're going to cheer for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when he goes to Tampa Bay. If you're a fan of Aaron Rodgers, you're going to cheer for the Jets when he goes there. I also think, way back in the day, I don't think any of us are of that age, but you didn't get to see all the games as well every single week. You only got your local market. So you grew up more rooting for your local team, or if your team was a perennial stinker, maybe you cheered for a rival and you were the black sheep of the family, let's say. But nowadays, again, with Red Zone and NFL Sunday, you can watch every game. So if I'm in Florida, I can be a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs. If I'm in Seattle, I can watch the Baltimore Ravens or Buffalo Bills every week and be a fan of them, even if I don't see them on my local TV anymore, because I can just watch them however. So I think the fandom is changing, but I think if you are a fan of football, that's important, and cheer for football however you want, because I think we all just love football.
That part's true. However, if anybody's listening right now, pick a goddamn team. Don't jump. You can root for multiple teams, but you need to pick one team for your own and never waver. Don't ever waver. It doesn't matter. If they change cities, fine. If you're a Cleveland fan and they go to the Baltimore Ravens, fine.
And they do that to you.
Sorry.
And this is coming from a Jaguars fan, a Dolphins fan, a Cowboys fan who have not been successful by any measure of the word for decades now.
But I've never switched, never wavered.
And there's a great history with the Dolphins. The only team ever going undefeated, the 72 Dolphins. Obviously, the Cowboys with Tom Landry and Roger Staubach, and then the 90s with the triplets. And, of course, with the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have the Mark Brunell era, the Blake Bortles era, and now whatever you have now.
And now the Sunshine era featuring Calvin Ridley and the Frenchman in the running back position. Yes,
you have a history of having a swimming pool in your stadium for fans to enjoy the game from.
Yep. Yes. But except that makes more sense in my stadium. You should have some kind of a jungle. Remember I said last time, like, get your aesthetic right. Like, get yourself a Jaguar. Like, get a Jaguar for the stadium.
Well, that's like when Dan Campbell, and this is a good segue because I want to talk about the Lions very quickly. Dan Campbell wanted to see if he could get a lion on the sideline for the Detroit Lions. But we mentioned the fact that the Jacksonville Jaguars came into the NFL in 1995, one of only a handful of teams never to appear in a Super Bowl. It could be worse. You could cheer for the Detroit Lions, who have been there every year and have never made a Super Bowl. So,
my God,
that is true.
But finally, I see a twinkle in those lion eyes. I see a Jared Goff that's revitalized after probably losing a lot of moxie from being traded and feeling demoralized from not being able to win with his initial team.
And see that team win right after he leaves.
Exactly. What more motivation? So I wonder if that motivated him in a special way. It basically, a swap. Basically the same skill set guy, if you think about it. It's not like they went for like a running type quarterback. They literally just like, let's flip passers, which is really rare. And they did that. The motivation, and they're well coached, and they're buying in. You can tell that they're buying in.
Yeah.
I like the Lions a lot.
You could say there's a power in Detroit, which brings us to the power rankings.
The power ranking. Wow.
There you go.
Well done. Wow, look at that. My God.
And again, kids, you can like the Lions even if they're not your team. You can still root for them, but still a Dolphin fan at heart. Am I right, AC?
Let's see if I can do this. When you're
Just don't cheer for the Lions. They're going to break your heart every year.
when you're a Jacksonville fan, it's more like
fatality.
Wow. Well played.
Thank you.
All right.
Can't you just, if you like the Jaguars, just cheer for all teams that have a cat?
Yeah. Yep.
If you like the Dolphins, any aquatic team, the Cowboys, any team that involves some sort of human.
There are no aquatic teams.
Well, then you're only cheering for one team.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm fucking talking about. No,
Yeah.
I mean,
You can have the Vikings.
I guess so. They have a boat. I guess they can.
And the Bucks.
They're mobile.
Buccaneers, they're on water.
Yeah, there you go.
They're mobile. But Buccaneer, I think the definition of a Buccaneer is a land privateer, which is
it's like a boat. It's a boat cowboy.
And let's move along.
Boat cowboy.
Last week before the game, my Jaguars were ranked 8th. They were ranked 8th. I'm going to guess, because I haven't seen this yet, I'm going to guess my Jags fell to about 12th after that loss. And I'm going to guess Kansas City moved up to about 5 or 4.
Well, guess again, Mr. Watson. This is a fresh one. This is something that's fresh. They put it together for you. ESPN is burning the candle at both ends to give you this.
I just haven't seen it yet.
Up to the second, San Francisco 49ers is number 1 in the power rankings.
They put it, okay.
Number 2. There we go. The big reveal. Congratulations.
The big overreaction.
The big overreaction. Wait, we have that. Yeah. Overreaction Tuesday. That's us right here. Hold on. There you go.
Yep.
A little overreaction Tuesday. And that's what this is right here. Yep. CeeDee Lamb was the player of the week, up 4 points, which is fantastic. 2 touchdowns for him. We talked about it earlier. And there he is. Oh my God. Tony Kornheiser talking about how Dak won that game for them, I guess.
And just Tony Romo was just gushing about Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott and the play call.
I guess I'm just reading the paper. I mean, I'm just trepidatious on any aging coach from a yesteryear. Even Andy Reid. Andy Reid can also soon have a seat. First of all, it makes your legacies intact. You don't have to like drive it into the ground. Like Joe Montana going to KC or whatever. Like, you don't have to do this. So you can leave that intact, and let somebody else come up. Let somebody else from your dynamic tree, Eric Bieniemy, make him a head coach. He had to go take a lateral move, in Washington for what? It's time to be a head coach. So lots of reasons to step down Andy. Bye-bye.
His former team, the Eagles, look like they're number 3. So it's interesting. The top 3 teams are all NFC teams.
Mm-hmm. Notice that too.
And then it's interesting that that San Francisco fell from number 1 without losing. But look at the Miami Dolphins at number 4.
The 49ers didn't fall, Dave. 49ers are number 1.
No, I saw that. But if Philadelphia is now 3rd and they fell 2, that means
Philadelphia. Okay.
If Philadelphia fell 2, that means San Francisco and Dallas jumped up. Philadelphia fell without losing it. How does that work? But okay.
Miami jumped up 5. Well, hold on a second. Let's go back to San Francisco. San Francisco stayed even. They were already ranked 1.
Okay.
Dallas Cowboys jumped 4, spots to get to number 2.
Philadelphia, I swear.
Philadelphia went down 2.
It's because the Cowboys are 2 wins, 70 points for, 10 against. So the Cowboys have the highest scoring offense, the lowest scoring defense.
Okay.
They're plus 60 in their point differential. The Philadelphia Eagles, they squeaked out a win. They didn't look great against the Patriots. Again, they took some, was it 4 fumbles from the Vikings to win a Thursday night game? So even though they're 2-0, 59 points scored, 48 against, they're only plus 11. So again, this is an overreaction to what we saw. And it really doesn't mean anything. The 49ers, Cowboys, and Eagles, I think the one thing we can take or be in agreement of are these were the 3 teams that a lot of people thought would be the best teams in an NFC where a lot of people felt who was the fourth best team. That's where the biggest drop off was.
Sure.
Now, the fact that these are the 3 highest ranked teams in the power rankings, if you take any,
I mean, power rankings week 2 is
belief
pretty,
in the power
come on.
rankings,
Yeah,
but
week 2 power rankings are like whatever.
Factor in Dallas and Philadelphia will play twice, and then Dallas and I believe Philadelphia will also play the 49ers each. So
Miami plays Dallas.
It'll be interesting. But what I find more interesting is all the talk was how great the AFC was going to be, and there they are, the best team in the AFC right now
Is the Dolphins.
You're right.
Your Miami Dolphins,
Thank you,
AC,
Ron.
and then who's right under them? Probably the Chiefs, close behind them, Baltimore.
You can see you peaked. Yep, Chris Jones.
Well, I was going to say, so the disrespect to Baltimore, you have all these 2-0 teams, but then you don't put Baltimore in there ahead of the 1-1 Chiefs. Dave, if your Jaguars
That's
beat
disrespectful.
these Chiefs, I wonder if the Jags would be sitting there in number 5 or possibly even number 4.
They went down 3 spots, but one of the reasons is because Chris Jones is back and Travis Kelce's back. So we were uncertain about Travis Kelce, and Chris Jones seemed to, I don't know, somebody slipped him a check or whatever under the table, so he's feeling good about his money now. But he's under contract through 2023, which is a huge question mark on how this team was going to perform. The Lions game was a shit show, so obviously something came of it. And then number 6, we have the 2-0 Baltimore Ravens. They stayed at the 6th ranking. So looks like their best player this week is Patrick Queen. And of course, they beat the hallowed Joe Cool-led Meow Meows. But yeah, that's number 6. This is really surprising to me that number 7, Buffalo, you've ranked so high. In the entire NFL, they went up 9. So what does that mean? That they were ranked
Well,
mid?
they were ninth. They were 9th last week. They were ranked and they went up. I thought that was that way to begin with too, but they were actually 9th last week.
Oh, they went up from 9. So we're reading this wrong. My apologies.
Yeah.
My apologies.
I caught that from the get-go, but no, that's fine.
Okay. So up from 4. So Dallas was already 4. Right. That's me and my Miami Dade education. And yep, up from 5 up to 4. Yep. And then
1 to 4.
Down 3 because of the big loss to the line. Well, we already had that. But now they just don't look as spicy out there.
All right.
Baltimore Ravens stayed at 6, 7. Buffalo Bills up from 9. Okay. Let's go to the top 10 here. And Detroit Lions made the top 10 in the entire NFL power rankings, which is crazy. They were 7 last week and up to 8. And then look rounding out the top 10. Look at this.
Excellent. Who's number 10?
My man. Look, they didn't even put in their Sunshine as the best player. It was Josh Allen.
Oh, what?
We need more sunshine. And number 10, the New Orleans Saints, the 2-0. There are so many 1-1 teams up there that are disrespecting.
We didn't see at Tampa Bay or Washington. We saw all the other 2-0 teams, I believe, but we didn't see obviously Washington, Atlanta, or Tampa Bay. So yeah, that sounds about right. The teams with the good records, the teams with 1-1 records but have good quarterbacks, or teams that were in the playoffs a year ago. The biggest one that we don't see up there is probably the Cincinnati Bengals, because obviously 0-2, you cannot justify putting them in the top 10. And I would say, I guess the biggest surprise for me, the Saints, but at 2-0.
I don't know if that's a surprise for me, because I could see Derek Carr going 2-0. But the surprise for me is Atlanta and Washington in 11 and 12.
Well, because it's like college football, right? We're undefeated.
Did we lose you?
Without a
yeah.
No.
We lost you for a second. You're good.
Okay. I thought it was me. I really did.
So who's after the 2-0 teams? Who's our next 1-1 team or 0-2 team?
2-0 Tampa. There you go.
Yeah.
Sammy.
So then
Mike Evans is stellar again.
So Seattle, they're saying, is the best of the 1-1 teams. Yeah. And they're where Cincinnati dropped to.
Let's see. Cleveland, 16 from 11 dropped. And then
the Chargers. So they do not believe in the Bengals. I guarantee if we read the blurb, they're probably concerned about Joe Burrow's ankle.
Is that the first 0-2 team that we come across in the rankings?
I believe so. Yeah, that makes sense. Again, Chargers lost 2 close games. They they've been scoring well. Their defense can't stop anybody. The Chargers have been charging.
They've been charging hard. Let's see. Okay, and then Green Bay, which is looking. I'm eating my words. I didn't believe in love, but I'm in love now with love. I think I'm loving love.
He's better than I thought it'd be.
Yeah. And then the Los Angeles Rams at 1-1 up from 22. And then the New York Jets, despite losing their Lord and Savior, they've gone here to, even with Zach Wilson.
So let's just pull the Band-Aid off. Who's the worst team in the NFL? Is it the Arizona Cardinals or is it going to be the Houston Texans? Who do they have at the bottom? Some of these 0-2 teams.
Arizona Cardinals to me is the worst team because of how they're
run. You know what? Chicago Bears maybe could be down there.
Trash.
I'll guess the Bears.
I don't think the Cardinals are going to be on there just because the Cardinals have lost 2 close games. They were up 20-0 on the Giants. Yeah. So I think it's either going to be the Bears or the Texans. And I don't know. I feel like they're just going to trash the Bears.
I agree.
I do. Right. I mean, I think the Bears. I don't like Justin. I know people are enamored with Justin Fields. I don't see it. I don't see being enamored with a sub 6'2" quarterback. I don't. I'm enamored with Anthony Richardson. I've never seen. In many years, have I not seen a laser thrown like that? The kid needs to work. Obviously, he's a project, but like you can't teach that velocity. So, those are the kind of guys I'm enamored with. Get the ball as quickly, like Andy Reid. Get the ball as quickly as possible. Drive it down the field. Even if you catch it, just fall down. You know. New England Patriots is under. Under arrest. I hate them. Minnesota Vikings. We can definitely nudge Mr. Brandon Durham. The Minnesota Vikings are 0-2, despite Kirk Cousins and probably the best receiver in football, right? Or the second best?
Oh yeah, I think that's low for them. But again, week 2.
They don't have Dalvin Cook. I just want to say the only real difference here. Only real difference.
Yeah, but what's Dalvin Cook done? What's Dalvin Cook?
1,300 yards
in his new team. Nothing.
That's my point. That's my point.
So, yeah. So, all right, I could see that.
My city I live in now, Las Vegas. They were 19, now they're down to 26. It's a shit show. Another McDaniels New England nightmare. That guy's a horrific head coach. He makes enemies wherever he goes. He thinks his system is like, I don't know. It's not good. It's not good.
And again, in terms of power rankings after 2 weeks, to rank a team that's 1-1 behind a multitude of 0-2 teams, again, it speaks to how little they regard the Las Vegas Raiders.
That's why I found this an interesting exercise because it's only week 2. How are you going to power rank people?
The Denver Broncos could possibly be. Have we seen the Broncos yet?
The Broncos continue to have the newest worst game I've ever seen in my life. Like they are awful.
No.
So Indianapolis.
I think you're right. I think it's the Bears at the bottom.
Nope.
See, there the Broncos 28.
Little love.
Keep going.
Little love. Carolina Panthers. Yeah, pretty terrible.
I can see that.
Pretty terrible.
And keep going.
Okay.
Not the Bears yet.
Oh, the Bears.
Oh, there they are. 30.
So they think the Colts, the Texans and the Cardinals. So it's going to be Cardinals. Then Texans have to be worse. They can't put the Cardinals worse, can they? Or can they say a team that blew that big of a lead is the worst team in the NFL?
I think. I think when you weigh in the front office, the carousel of head coaches, the Josh Rosen pick. I mean, the Cliff Kingsbury debacle, all of this shit, like hiring a kid who's literally 5'6" to be your quarterback. Everything that shouldn't happen in the NFL, you've done it. Congratulations. Oh, let's see. Oh, I was right.
You are
31
right.
Texans. There's at least hope there. There's at least hope.
So you're saying that the number 2 ranked Dallas Cowboys travel to the number 32 ranked Arizona Cardinals in week 3.
And that brings us to the lock of the week, ladies and gentlemen. The lock of the week is going to be the Dallas Cowboys and Arizona Cardinals. You put your entire mortgage, your house, everything. Put your wife.
Cowboys by
do you
2
take the? Do you lay the points too? As the Cowboys are a 12.5 point road favorite at the moment. 12.5.
If I'm laying my mortgage, I'm going money line. But if 500 or 500,
if you haven't picked them in your survivor pool yet, you take the Cowboys.
1,000%. Yeah, I mean, you take Cowboys heavy and hard the entire weekend right now. Add them to parlays if you want to make something more juicy. Absolutely. That's probably the lockiest of the week.
If you're picking the way I picked 2 years ago, Dan Rod, and you'll remember this, Ron J's Pick'em Challenge, I strictly based my picks off the ESPN Power Rankings. And I literally had a formula that subtracted the amount of the rankings, so 32.
Yeah, the difference.
Yep, and took the difference, so 32 minus the 2, and then divide that in half, and that's how many points that Dallas is going to win by. They're going to win by 15 points because 32 minus 2 is 30. They'll win by 15 points. If 12.5 is it, then Dallas is your pick. Keep in mind, that's also the way I picked my Chargers last week as my lock of the week, and that did not work. So my lock of the week this week, Dallas by 2 touchdowns, and they will cover that spread.
He's taking the points. Okay, so you're taking the points.
They will cover that 12.5 points.
Out of this, that's a bit too much for me. But I will tell you this.
That's last week.
Let's go to this week. Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. I'm trying to talk and do this at the same time. So there we go. Preseason week 2. Is there a week 3? Here we go. Sorry about that. I'm like, wait a minute. This is in.
However, I did get my underdog, and I think most of you agreed with me. I think Dan Rod also said it was Baltimore did win that game as an underdog. They outright won it, like we both said. I think it was me and you, Dan Rod, that said that. AC, you missed your luck.
How about a Thursday night, San Francisco, New York at San Francisco, going across the country, Saquon-less into the best defense in the league? That might be the new lock.
Well, just to be fair to the Giants, not going across the country, they stayed in Arizona after that win. So they're staying on the West Coast.
Okay.
Not quite the Jaguars and Jacksonville type, but they planned on not going back to New York to go back to San Francisco on a short week Thursday night.
Best thing they could have done.
But I just want to clarify from last week. So, yes, we're trying to pick at least one underdog that could win, our upset special, I think we called it. And Dave and I both had the Ravens at the Bengals. I don't remember everyone's picks. Now, I want to know if I get credit. My lock of the week was Packers at Falcons. At the time when we picked it, the Packers were a +1.5. So technically they covered, even though they lost.
Yeah, you get one Pikachu.
And actually, I think the Packers ended up being a 3-point or 4-point dog because we found out later in the week Aaron Jones wasn't going to play, David Bakhtiari wasn't going to play. God. So that line actually moved in my favor. Yes. Now, I did think the Packers were going to win that game outright. And for a long time during that game, I still thought they were going to win that game outright. And then that's one of the games I just wanted to highlight. I know we didn't talk about all the games today, but Jordan Love on 4th and 1 late in the fourth quarter. I don't know what happened, but I've never seen a quarterback potentially trying to go for a QB sneak be the only player that moved, and he stumbled and fell forward and got a false start penalty. So if you want to see a play of sheer, I won't call it incompetence,
it was
a play that'll make it kind of laugh, watch Jordan Love failed QB sneak. A lot of people are saying, the memes when you stumble home drunk from the bar or whatever the case may be. It did not look good. And I was watching the play live at the time because I was flipping through a few games during that 1 o'clock block Eastern time. And I saw that. And then, of course, they punted. The Cardinals drove the ball, basically kicked a field goal with very little time left to take the Falcons kicked the field goal with very little time left. And then Jordan Love could not lead a comeback after that. So that's how my lock of the week, the Packers, although a 1.5-point underdog, ended up losing a game that they should have won outright.
They should have. But we're doing good. I mean, it's like you said, hey, it is only the second week. We're allowed to make mistakes. Right. We think things are going to happen, but they truly can't because we just want too much to happen. So here we go. Your lock. So who is your underdog of this week, Walton?
Is there a point spread anywhere there? I can't see who.
I can bring that up. Sure.
Yeah, if you could, and I'll do it on the fly. I'm fine with that.
I got you.
In fact, I wanted to say my lock of the week is Dallas because that 12.5 is a lot. There might be one that works better, but I would pick Dallas.
Vegas Insider gives us all the lines here at once, so you can actually see all the casinos here.
So let's go.
So we go here. So you got the
What's
Giants.
the point spreads there?
Looks like plus 10 across the board. All right. Is the point spreads.
Giants get that from the 49ers. 49ers. I don't want to touch that game.
They might. I mean, it's the only thing there is Thursday night. So otherwise, I like the line. I just don't like the Thursday night.
Yeah.
And then we move into Chargers Vikings.
Chargers Vikings. That's almost a toss up, right?
I think the Vikings need to win a game at this point, right?
Well, I understand that, but so it's Vikings -1.
Yeah. FanDuel has them at 1.5. MGM has them at +1. Caesars has them at about even. Looks like DraftKings has them at +1.
Well, I'm gonna screw up and I'm gonna no, I don't want to do that because I like the way the Vikings.
Moving on.
Yeah, keep going.
Titans Browns, the ugliest game you've ever seen, and that's going to be a shit show. It might be so bad it might end up being great because it's just so hideous.
Yeah, no, keep zipping and
I
not
think
touching.
for me, just
Oh.
for my upset of the week, I'm going to go to the Monday nighter, the second of two Monday nighters. I'll take the 1-1 Rams getting 2 points at the Bengals. I think the Rams can go into Cincinnati, and this goes from bad to worse for the Bengals fans. I think the Rams beat the Bengals on Monday night.
You're probably not wrong on that.
I'm inclined to agree.
I'm curious if that line moves if we see that Joe Burrow might be out, because I can't imagine the Bengals are a 2-point favorite at home if Joe Burrow's not playing in that game.
Exactly. And I would say that I like the 1.5. That looks, I'm not sure what that is, but I use Caesars. So they're at 2.5, MGM -2. You can always buy the hook. If it's 2.5, you can always kind of move the odds a little bit. You can tease it. Exactly right. And then you're looking at FanDuel is probably the same, Bet365. So that's across the board. I don't disagree that the Bengals could start not only 0-3, 0-4.
Yeah.
And I mean, you have leading pass catcher in the NFL, Puka Nacua, coming to Cincinnati. I mean, when it comes to the elite of elite receivers, clearly the numbers don't lie.
Yeah,
Puka Nacua is here to stay. That's just fun to say.
Can you say it again?
Puka Nacua, 25
Nacua.
catches, most catches in the NFL, and then second most yardage, 266 total yards received.
What'd you call me? Puka Nacua. So
you got all those names right. I can't kind of see them there. I'll stick with the no, I can't. I don't trust the
you got Bears Chiefs. There's a lot of locks this week. Bears Chiefs.
The difference in week 3 is if you're going to pick the lock and you're going to take them with the points, there's a lot more higher spreads or wider spreads than we saw the first few weeks. So obviously you have the Chiefs a 12.5 point home favorite against the Bears, which I guess I don't know if that says more about the Bears or the Chiefs, because the Cowboys same spread that I'm looking at as a road team. And of course, usually home teams you're at least given a 3-point advantage as a home team. So, the Chiefs are on a neutral site, probably 10 points better than the Bears, and they're saying the Cowboys are more 15-point on neutral site over the Cardinals. For me, I'll go lock of the week, even though they disappointed me and they were, I was very critical of them earlier, Dave, your Jaguars. I think they can beat the Texans. I think they're getting anywhere from 9.5 to 10 points.
They're giving 9.5 to the Texans.
I think they will cover at home against the Texans. I think they can win by 10 points.
Yeah,
well,
so
you son of a bitch. Fine. If you're going to do that, Dan Rod, I will lock in your Dallas Cowboys. 2 touchdowns. I think you just wanted me to do that. 2 touchdowns over the worst team in the NFL, the Cardinals, and I'll go that with my lock then.
All right. So just to recap, we have we have you taking the Dallas Cowboys with the points. Yep. Is that correct? Dan?
Yeah, 12.5, and
Dan, you're taking the Rams over the Bengals.
I'm going to take the Rams over the Bengals. With the Bengals a 2-point favorite, I'm going to lock that in today as my upset special, because I guarantee that line's going to change. I don't think Joe Burrow's playing in this one, and if he is, he's hobbling.
Yeah, that's a gift.
And you and I are going to agree on that underdog pick. By the way, Dan Ron again. Sorry.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and I'm depositing money right now.
And I'll take my lock of the week. I'll take the Jags 9.5 over the Texans. Another interesting one, the Ravens only getting 8 right now against the Colts. If Anthony Richardson does not clear concussion protocol, that line might change as well.
Big time.
So getting the Ravens at only -8, that could be interesting. If you want to tease it and get them down, I think sometimes with teasers, you can move the line by 6, then maybe you take the Ravens -2 against the Colts, almost to pick them. And who knows? But
yeah.
I will tell you that. So I did have some of those but I had some backups just in case you guys chose those locks. Mine, and I'm not to be a homer, but I do believe that the way the Broncos are playing right now, coming across from Denver, coming into Miami home opener. I mean, Joe Robbie, that's right. I still call it Joe Robbie, is going to be electrified. Hard Rock is going to be rocking. If you have never been to a Miami Dolphins game, do yourself a favor and go have a party. Starting at 7:00 in the morning, it's like it is. You've smelling meats you've never smelled in your life. A virtual cornucopia of delights, visually and olfactory. But I will tell you this:
are those meats alligators? Is that what we're smelling?
Oh, of course, yeah.
They're not dolphins.
Peacocks. We roast peacocks and all types of exotic avian. So it's not because I'm a homer, because I hate to do that. I try to be as least a homer as possible, but I do like the Dolphins 6.5 across the board in every sports book. Welcoming the Broncos basically across the country, into the heat, into the humidity, down from a mile high. Russell Wilson looks like hot trash garbage on a shit shingle. We're riding a high, and barring anything, flukish to happen, I don't see them running on our defense via the air or the ground. I might be underestimating them. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I like the Dolphins 6.5 over the Broncos.
It's a good pick. It's a good pick. It's very good.
I don't want to disagree with you, but I also don't want to jinx you. For some reason, I just feel like this is a game where the Broncos are just going to find a way to win for no reason whatsoever. But anyways, that's your lock of the week. Do you have a potential upset where we just look for a team that's not favored to win that we think could pull off a victory? Obviously,
I believe
risky.
I believe the Browns. The Browns, just to go a little bit different than you guys. I'm not sure if I would take the points here. I think I would go money line, but I think the Browns are due to win a game. It's been a couple close ones. Deshaun Watson. So last night he cost me.
Favorite though, are they not?
I'm sorry. Oh, they are favorite. I'm sorry. You know what? It's been on my mind because. So last night I had a ticket. I didn't tell you guys about it. I took the spread of each game and the over under, and I picked one to go under, which is the Panthers game, and the over, which is the Browns game. I hit all 3 legs, and the last thing he needed to do was just win by 2. It was -2, and all he had to do was not throw a pick and end the game.
Fumble, I think, the second time, but yeah, he gave two touchdowns away.
Fumbled, yeah, he gave 2 touchdowns away, and then he fumbled it. He holds it like a loaf of bread, so it's hard to keep a grasp on it. But you're right. My apologies. Let me pick an underdog.
So why don't you take the Titans to beat the Browns because you're so scorned
you're right.
of what the Browns did to you.
But just my luck that shit will happen.
And then to add insult to injury, and again, no disrespect to Nick Chubb, and I wish him a speedy recovery, but Derrick Henry's going to come in there and just run all over the Cleveland Browns. But that being said, the Cleveland Browns can hang their hat on being one of the best defenses in football, so I think it will be difficult for the Titans to come in there, but who knows?
Derrick Henry's going to come in there and blow his ACL.
No.
I'm kidding. It's just
but I am curious to know.
I thought he was going to go that way
next week.
All right, so here we go. All right, I'm not going to choose that game. I had a couple backups. I'm going to take as the upset. Those are just ugly games.
You hate the Raiders so much.
Well, no, Saints. I could see the Saints coming back to cover against the Packers, not to win the game, but maybe just lose by 1. So that's my official pick. Lock it in. Last one, Alex Trebek.
You think the Saints?
All right.
The Saints to the Packers.
Yep. Write that down.
There you go.
And we all have Venmo, so we can Venmo each other. I can't do the Canadian. I can't do the Canadian
the
conversion. It's just math is not my strong suit.
That is a fact. Gentlemen, it was very nice talking. I didn't even know I could be on this long. Sorry about my issues with the internet beforehand. Sorry about covering up my Jaguars gear at the beginning with my Ted Lasso gear. But,
you kind of football. It's the wrong kind of football, bro.
you go with the team that's popular at the time, and Ted Lasso can never be unpopular. So, but I'm
Lupe.
sorry Brandon wasn't here tonight. He missed a good show, but I always enjoy talking to both of you about NFL. And thank you very much for this evening.
Go sports ball. Go all of our teams. Go Cowboys. Go Jags. Go Finns. Not go Vikings. Not go Raiders.
And I'll just say week 3, we got a couple of matchups where we love to say this in boxing, but the O has got to go. So the Eagles on Monday night, 2-0 at the 2-0 Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are getting 5.5 points at home. The Eagles are the favorite. So one of those two teams, barring a tie, will lose their undefeated record, as well as the 0-2 Chargers at the 0-2 Vikings. So probably two of the more disappointing 0-2 teams. The Vikings are a +1 home dog there, depending on what sportsbook you're looking at, might be a pick 'em. But one of those two teams, barring something crazy, should get their first victory of the season. The team that goes to 0-3 in that one will probably be a very devastating 0-3. And then for myself and AC, we are two 2-0 teams taking on two 0-2 teams. So can we continue our streak and continue those team streaks of futility? As we mentioned, the Dolphins home to the Broncos and the Cowboys on the road to the Cardinals. 4 matchups where there are either 2-0 teams playing 0-2 teams, or 2-0 versus 0-2. So will the O go by week 3?
It's the best time of the year. It's still fresh. Our teams can still do anything.
Everyone's relevant.
Betting lines are wide open. Everyone's relevant. Not everyone has a torn ACL or a torn Achilles yet. But I prognosticate about 15 or 16 more torn Achilles by now.
Yeah, and again, if you're an 0-2 team and you win this week and go to 1-2, you are still feeling very good about the season.
Absolutely.
0-3, it gets very dim. So we will see who can avoid 0-3. And then, of course, on the other side of the coin, 3-0 is great. 2-1 is still pretty good. But we will see who is undefeated and who is still winless. Those will be the key talking points, probably, among other things,
Yes.
next week.
As we enter the meat of the Dave, as we enter the meat of the season, this is when actual data is going to come into place, actual predictions. Before we were talking out of our ass when it was Hard Knocks time, but now we get to actually see if we know what the hell we're talking about, or we just say pretty words. So we'll see you next week. Dave, you said you wanted a little action on the back end.
No, I was just agreeing with everybody, and you guys are. No, I already said it. You guys are amazing. Enjoy speaking with you guys. Enjoy doing the show. For everybody listening now or listening later, thank you. And this is NFL HQ.
Yeah,
the Married Couple Podcast will not be doing How Was Your Day tomorrow due to my lack of internet, but we will be back next week. So, and NFL HQ will be back next week.
Did we streamline anything? We're over 2 hours again. How did we do?
No, we did a whole lot more. Yeah, it was even fattier.
We'll get there.
But the conversation was great, and I'm sure everyone's gonna really. If anyone's here till the end of this,
thank you.
You're the MVP. You're the MVP. Go football. Go week 3. We'll see you next time on NFL HQ.